We're back with another episode of Comfort and Chaos. This is part 2 of my conversation with LeeAnn Anderson. If you missed part 1, you gotta go back. You gotta listen to part 1. Part 2 is just, it's not gonna make any sense. It's the second part of a 2-part series, so that's how that works. But being real, this half of this conversation gets into some really heavy topics. If you were with us in part 1, LeeAnn was just opening up about losing her son, Patrick, and how that obviously changed their lives in so many ways, but how it also deepened her relationship with her husband and her relationship with herself and her relationship with the universe and with grief and love and life. And also, stick around to the end of the episode because LeeAnn leads us in a sound healing meditation right here on the podcast. And it was so nice, so healing. And the words she used hit a place in me. So I hope it does for you too. Anyway, y'all enjoy this episode, and we'll see you next time.
We all are here together just to learn about ourselves and how we can take care of everybody else. Living on a planet that is circling the drain, we do the best we can to not just go insane. It's comfort and chaos.
And part of that was Patrick leaving us at a young age and allowing Bob and I to go one step deeper into opening up to each other and knowing each other. I feel like there was on a different plane work that Bob and I had to do together in this lifetime. And Patrick passing was like the icing on the cake of doing that work.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a very radically vulnerable and just radical stance to, or not even stance, just acceptance to see it from that perspective. Because on one dimension, on the material plane, I fully do believe, and I think it's understood in all schools of thought and science and whatever, that there are more planes of reality playing out at one time than we understand with our eyeballs and our ears and all our senses. Is that on this one plane, it is so heartbreaking and tragic and awful and heavy and unbearable. But then on a whole larger field that kind of holds our experience is this. We don't even necessarily know why. We don't really know the answers, or we don't know why this curriculum and these happenings are being played out, but they are for a deeper work, like you said, and a deeper understanding of what it means to be a human having a conscious experience. And sounds like this was this real stream entry for you guys on one level, the most tragic, heartbreaking possible way, and on another level, the deepest way. And so I kind of just want to also acknowledge, because I think sometimes spirituality can push away the tragedy of the current existence. And so acknowledging that, what is something, because I know people, sadly, I know people who have had experiences like this as parents. And just to kind of help a lot of people, help myself and help a lot of people listening, when someone goes through something like this, losing a child for any reason, or what are some things that were just maybe not so helpful to hear from other people who were doing their best and thinking maybe this is what LeeAnn wants me to say to them as a response, or they just don't know, or it's scary, or, it's awkward.
Right.
I can only imagine there were a lot of things.
It's funny. I don't really recall things that people said that weren't helpful. For me, what was really, it's what wasn't said. So I think our culture has such a hard time understanding how grief interacts with life.
Yeah.
How loss, how death is a part of our existence. And we're just not taught in this culture to celebrate the passing of a life and to celebrate what that life brought into this world, even though it was a short time. So for me and for Bob, we often talk about the people that were able to step up to the plate and just ask questions. Just, how are you today? Like without an expectation of would just keep coming back and shooting us a text or picking up the phone and calling months and months after Patrick was gone.
Yeah.
It was the people, and a lot of times unexpectedly, the people that you didn't expect that really showed up.
Right.
That were really compassionate, that were really understanding of none of us know what LeeAnn and Bob are feeling. There's like no way that we can.
Yeah.
And I fortunately had a couple of friends that had, I shouldn't say that, not fortunately.
Compassionately. And community.
I had friends that had lost sons actually. And they were really very helpful for me as I was navigating the grief journey. But moving back to that, things that aren't helpful that people say, it's not what you say, it's what you don't say. So to people out there that are listening, that perhaps have a friend or family member that have lost somebody really significant in their life, to just come from a place of love and open-heartedness, even if it's just picking up the phone and saying hello or sending them a random card or text or, months later to say, I thought of you and I made you this soup.
Yeah.
I mean, just little acts of kindness. They're just like lifelines.
Yeah. I love that. And I think it's like you said, the crucial, I guess, differentiator is to come from a place of no expectations. Like, don't maybe just put your expectations aside of how you need this person to feel. From a standpoint of, like, say I'm approaching someone who's lost, I can easily come up with a narrative that, like, I need this person to give me an answer that's like acceptable, because it's really uncomfortable for me to hear that they're not okay, or to hear, because then it means that if I go through the same thing, I'm not going to be okay. There's a level of that. Even like I had COVID pretty severely last year, and this is not, the same level of grief or pain. But when people ask you, how are you feeling? Or you can feel a vibrational sense of if they're asking because they're actually checking if they're going to be okay, or if they're just genuinely wondering how you are, and you're able to tell them, I'm not doing okay, and that's really special when you feel a sense of safety around somebody, and they're coming to you without expectation, and you can just say, you know what, this fucking sucks, or I'm at my lowest, and they're not going to turn and run out of their own fear. So,
Yeah.
And just having a bit of courage and putting away the self for a little while to be there for someone else that's really healing.
Yeah, definitely. And I get how it's challenging for other people to just not know how to be there for someone that's really in the deep end of grief.
Yeah.
But that's, again, and I had a really significant, and I have a really significant friend, and we grew apart for some time over her inability really to know even what to do. Like
Yeah.
there was no capacity.
Yeah.
And it really was hurtful to me. And in my dilemma of, do I just walk away from this friendship, or do I take this opportunity to let her know how that impacted my life and my journey, and in the hopes that the next time it happened in her life, she would be more prepared to be the person that could step up to the plate.
Yeah.
So sometimes, so there were some hard conversations like that with friends. And when I did decide that I didn't want to walk away from that friendship, I would rather have it be a teaching moment. It was very well received.
Yeah.
And, we are now friends, again, and kind of moving forward in a slightly different capacity, but still growing as people and as friends and experiencing this life together.
Yeah.
And that's what it's all about,
Yeah.
I think.
We have to teach people how to love us. We really do. I mean,
totally.
we think, all media and all of the movies teach us that if someone loves you, they're reading your mind, they're reading everything, they're, genetically encoded to know everything about you. And that's couldn't be further from the truth. There is an element of chemistry, right? You and Bob had this magnetic sense, but you still have to teach them who you are today, because you're not the same LeeAnn you were when you met Bob. I guarantee that. And every day is a teaching experience and it's a joy to be able to teach someone and teach yourself who you are and how you can better be loved. And I'm glad you had that turning point, because it is so, and sometimes the answer is, at least maybe temporarily or forever, to set a boundary or to walk away from someone who is not meeting you where you're at. But I think it's worth, again, turning towards and seeing what this is teaching you.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. In that instance, it was really important for me to turn towards and not walk away. I didn't want to, there was a lot of history there that I didn't want to lose.
Yeah. I'm glad you didn't lose it. And so in your grief from Patrick leaving the world, you said it was a real inflection point for you and Bob, and I'm sure for you just personally too. At what point, or maybe was there a moment in your grief journey, which is still happening? Grief doesn't go anywhere; it just changes. That you tapped into a deeper sense of, this grief is here for my healing, and my healing is here for other people's healing, because that's what you've taken on now as a part of what your incarnation has taken on, is being a healer for other people. So when did those two things kind of intersect, or how?
So I think it evolved a little bit at a time. After I lost Patrick, 9 weeks later, I lost my Aunt Mary, who I talked about earlier.
Yeah,
told me to change my philosophy. And then 6 months after Patrick, I lost my mom.
Wow.
So 2019 was... the loss was really heavy. And then the September, after my mom died, my daughter Juliana's best friend from high school died. So I became really anxious, and I couldn't shake the feeling that I was going to turn around and someone else was going to die.
Right.
So I had PTSD really, I think, pretty badly.
Understandably.
For the really first time in my life, I was feeling a lot of anxiety and fear in my body around that. And one day, I just came to this realization that I wasn't breathing. Like I had been a yogi at that point for maybe 18 years, just used to taking really big, deep breaths. And I realized that my parasympathetic nervous system was really discombobulated, and I realized I wasn't breathing. So I started, I don't know why, I found this Tibetan bowl meditation that really soothed me
Yeah.
and allowed my body to relax. And at the same time, I started practicing Qigong, which is an ancient Chinese moving meditation that
Closely aligned with like Taoism.
yes, and it's designed to open up your energy channels and to get your energy meridians all flowing in the right direction. Unstuck. I felt very stuck. And again, it's very much breath oriented. So it was a way for me to start to consciously bring breath back into my day. And when I started doing that, it was actually around the time that we bought our house in Avon. So after Patrick passed, we just could not be in Raleigh. Everything reminded us of him, and we just knew people. We ran into people all the time, and so it was really uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And we decided we were gonna buy a little house out here, and that this would be a really good time for us to heal. So we did that, and we took over. We ended up, it was in the rental program. So by the time we took it over, it was the fall, and then the hurricane hit. So we cleaned all that up. And then we had a couple of months there, and then COVID started, in 2020. And we thankfully were here on the island renovating our little cottage. I'd started doing Qigong, maybe, a few months before that, but I started on the island. I started a habit of waking up for sunrise, riding my bike over to the beach and doing Qigong on the beach. And from very early stages of my Qigong, for whatever reason, I started bringing Patrick and my higher self. I invited them both to practice with me. So whenever I would practice, I would visualize them either standing across from me or standing on each side of me. And since Qigong is such a amazing way to work with your energy, and Patrick's energy is always going to be in my field.
Yeah.
His energy is always a part of my energy, is something that I learned. And I was able to teach myself how to really tap into his energy, so we could actually have conversations. Like, things would pop into my head that I knew weren't mine.
Yeah.
They were from it was Patrick asking me a question, or Patrick saying something, or joking around about something.
Yeah.
And he would do this thing, aside from the Qigong, but he would do this thing where I always create playlists, and every now and then he'll throw a song on one of my playlists that I'd be like, wait a minute, like,
This
what,
isn't
what
me,
is that?
right?
Like,
Yeah.
where did that come from? And it took me, like, maybe by the second time I realized that, oh, that's Patrick throwing things into my playlist, because electronic things, electricity is something that the spirit world can manipulate really easily. So that's one way that he would communicate. But so I started bringing them into my field, doing the Qigong, and cultivating a relationship with Patrick and my higher self that allowed me to understand that our essence changes, or I should say, our the way that we present in the world, our physicality, that changes, but the essence of our spirit and the essence of our energy doesn't change.
That's a very profound understanding to have. Not just not just in a mental sense, but to actually sit and feel that.
Yes. So
Yeah.
I really started to feel that really, really deep within myself. And that was so comforting to then know that I was still carrying Patrick and in this biofield of my own energy. And to clarify that, or to give you a little bit more understanding of how intricate that energy is, I could literally think something, and Patrick would, the very next second, I'd be finding it on the floor. Or, this one time we were in Wyoming, and it was his, we were visiting my daughter Juliana. She lives there now. And one of the ways that he would communicate with me was via hearts, seeing hearts. And this story is longer than I'm going to go into it for time's sake. But towards the end of this paddleboard ride on the Snake River, I had talked to Patrick earlier in the day, and I asked for a heart. I was really struggling with being in Wyoming because there were so many boys his age working there. And so we had this great conversation, and I really wanted to see it. I wanted him to give me another heart, an indication that he was fully with us. But the first heart that he gave me that day, which I had to laugh out loud because, again, he's a jokester, was this ginormous boulder of a heart.
Oh my gosh.
That I turned around at one point when we stopped on the paddle boards and we were on the shore, and I was looking for Bob, and between me and Bob was this huge boulder shaped like a heart with shading shaped in a heart in the middle of it. Wow. So a heart on a heart.
Wow.
And I just laughed out loud because I was so mom-like earlier in my request for my heart.
Yeah.
I was like, and I don't want to have to walk around with my head down all day because I am in this beautiful place. So I want it to be really obvious. And so when he sent this, when I see this ginormous heart boulder, I just cracked up.
Oh my God.
Because he was like, yeah, here's your fucking heart, Mom. You're not going to be able to take it home like I know you wanted
I've been crafting
to.
this heart for 10,000 years.
He's like, so I just laughed and I took a picture, and I was totally okay with taking the picture of the heart home and, in my memory. But then it's the end of the paddleboard, and I'm waiting for Juliana to come back for the car, and I'm obsessed with rocks. So I'm looking for rocks in the water, and I think to myself, I really don't want to take home a bunch of little rocks. I want to take home like one cool, significant big rock.
Yeah.
And the minute that goes through my head, I look down, and there's a heart-shaped rock that's about the size of between the size of a softball and a soccer ball.
Wow.
So a big enough heart for me to walk away with, but also my one big rock.
Yes.
That I'm taking from Wyoming is this ginormous heart.
Oh my gosh. I love that. That's incredible that, to tap into that world of beyond what we, not even beyond, including what we see and feel and hear, but to include what is beyond, and, how Patrick has been able to be that entry point to a deeper dimension of life for you, and a conduit to spirituality as a whole.
Yeah.
It's incredible, actually. And
it really is. I have so many stories like that. And one of these days I'll put them all together in a book, because I think it's really helpful. You asked the question, how did I get into this healing? And that is part of that experience of really connecting energetically with Patrick, the way that it opened me up to the healing process, and really going back to, I don't know, what it is to be human, why we've chosen to experience this journey this time around.
And you had mentioned, breath being like at your most grievesome, at your most maybe easily led off the path of being conscious, you lose track of breath, which is life. I mean, the one thing we cannot live without for the shortest amount of time is breath. And it's amazing how, you can go back thousands and thousands of years in history, and the one technology that everyone has used to tap into a deeper source is breath, and the mindfulness of our breath, and how many things start to let go of and unfold and deepen when you just sit with your breath. I mean, there's a reason people devote their entire lifetimes to understanding their breath and just breathing. I had an experience. I've never done psychedelics, but I would classify this as a psychedelic experience I had. It was very temporary and fleeting, but I was meditating one day, and it was a normal day, and just was sitting with my breath, just breathing in, breathing out, noting the in-breath, noting the out-breath. And something it wasn't even a thought necessarily. It was a deep sense a felt sense that breath equals life. And as I started to deepen into that kind of psychedelic realm of that, it was, okay, so all the beings that I understand and know, they all breathe. Even plants breathe, and I think even inanimate objects have some sort of breath to them. And so as I went further out and out and out, I went off the earth and I'm in space, and I'm like, well, then space must breathe too, and stars, and I just kept going further out, like the James Webb telescope picture, and I was like, well, then, okay, the universe must breathe, and all things breathe. Say a hummingbird breathes at such a faster rate than you and I do. And so they experience this life, this breath at a different frame rate than us. Trees breathe at a much longer breath span than you and I. So what is the breath of a universe, of our whole experience? And I just kind of tripped into this understanding that the universe itself is a breathing being, and we are a part of its breath cycle.
Right.
And so this one large thing is breathing in and out. And right now we're probably in an out breath if we are experiencing and seeing things. And inside of this one breath is all of these heartbreaks and tragedies and falling in love and having children and not having children. And everything seems so consequential. And then somewhere, in a way that I can't understand, there will be an in-breath, and it will just be, And this was like I just couldn't believe. I mean, I'm not that smart. I don't have the ability to just like come up with that.
Right. You had a download.
And so it was later that evening, and I was driving and listening to a podcast. It was a talk by Eckhart Tolle, and in this talk, he starts saying, well, the microcosm is just a reflection of the macrocosm. So you and I here breathing is evidence that the universe itself breathes. I mean, he just described the whole thing. And I have equal parts openness and equal parts cynic, skeptic in me. My skeptic just died on the vine. Right? I just had to pull over my car and just stare for a while at nothing, and I was like, that's insane.
Definitely.
But like you said, breath was kind of it brought you back to this.
Yeah, it was a catalyst.
Connection.
Yeah, definitely. It brought me back. Started to bring me back to myself. Eckhart Tolle has been a big part of my life for many years. I can't even remember the first time I read The Power of Now, but I've probably read it 10 times.
It's profound, yeah.
Yeah.
Simple and profound.
Yeah. And I've used it too, just as a meditation sometimes when I'm walking my dog. I'll just be like, oh, I want to hear that. It's just such a great reminder. I think that was part helped with my grief process is to know that even though I was in this grief journey, it was really important for me to get back to the now, to get back to the joy that's also always relevant in life and always present in life.
Yeah.
If you are willing to walk in to the joy.
Right.
So I think that really helped me. I think Eckhart Tolle really did help me to find my way back to myself and the breath.
Yeah.
So the Tibetan bowls and the breath work and music just started to become a way for me to unfold, and also to grief. So when I could feel my body really tense or tighten up, I knew I really required some heavy release, a good sobbing session. So I could put on different pieces of music that I knew were going to trigger that for me. And I just allowed that to happen. There's a poem by Rumi, The House Guest.
I love it. Yes.
Yeah. And when she talks about, different things are going to greet you every day, whether they're anger or sadness. And it's okay. Just invite them in, give them a cup of tea, chat with them for a while. When they're ready to go, they're going to walk out the door again. So that was something that I always kept handy. I would read myself pretty often.
I'll read it if you want. Okay.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, this is by Rumi. It's called The Guest House. This being human, is this the right one?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, just making sure. This being human is a guest house. Every morning, a new arrival, a joy, a depression, a meanness. Some momentary awareness comes as an unexpected visitor. Welcome and entertain them all, even if they're a crowd of sorrows who violently sweep your house empty of its furniture. Still, treat each guest honorably. He may be clearing you out for some new delight. The dark thought, the shame, the malice, meet them at the door laughing and invite them in. Be grateful for whoever comes, because each has been sent as a guide from beyond.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's a hard one to accept, is like, we can all easily welcome in the fun guests, right? You know, it's like, oh, joy is here, ecstasy's here, orgasm is here, whatever, you know, Cheetos is here.
Right.
Those are easy guests to have. And, but you're missing so much of the human experience of being a host for the myriad of
the
things
spectrum of emotions that we have as humans
that are always happening.
Right.
I mean, hour by hour,
right.
minute by minute. And
yes.
so that's, it's a wonderful poem to keep close to the chest. Yeah.
Yeah. I've recently really gravitated to the thought that is why as spirits we come back to being human over and over again, because we can only experience this human life in these bodies. As spirit, we don't see, like we don't have our spirit doesn't have eyeballs, our spirit doesn't have ears. Like we can feel the vibrations, so we intuitively know things then, but we only get this experience when we decide we're going to come back for another journey in a human body.
Right.
That feels and cries. That can eat, that can have sex, that can do these things.
Yeah.
And I think as spirits, it's our opportunity to come here and play. It's the reason why we keep coming back.
Yeah. I feel a very felt sense of that, being true. And have you ever seen the show The Good Place?
No.
Oh, it's
it's a comedy.
It is, it's a comedy show. It's kind of like in the same vein, I guess, of The Office kind of vibe or whatever, but it's a little more absurd.
Right, like she shows up in heaven and she's not supposed to be there. That
exactly.
one. I've seen a couple of them, but I haven't watched all of it.
It's worth taking, this winter, like just take the time and just go, because I thought it was just a quirky little show.
Yeah.
It is so deep, and the guy who wrote it, Michael Schur, he has a book called How to Be Perfect, and it's all about moral ethics and this whole, philosophy of all this stuff. And he's a deep thinker and deep into Buddhism and all this. And I'm not going to spoil any of this for you, but there's such a element of that. How long do you want to be in perfection, in oneness, in heaven, until it's time to experience all the other things again? And again, maybe it comes back to my psychedelic meditation experiences. How long can you hold that in-breath in of just oneness, perfectness, no light, no dark, no heavy, no light, whatever, no pain, no joy, just isness. At some point you're going to breathe out again and have a full human incarnation. And
exactly.
Isn't that just a wonderful dance?
Yes.
Yeah.
Definitely. And again, a good reminder just to not to take ourselves so seriously.
Yeah.
It's just such a blip. Our lives are just such a blip.
Yeah.
Just fully embrace all of it. There is nothing bad, wrong about anything that you're experiencing, anything that you are.
That's really profound,
wonderful.
Coming from someone who could easily have taken the other perspective. Just based on your lifetime of experiences and griefs, and it can be easy to form that callus over that heart muscle of, you know what? No, fuck this. This existence is stupid, and nothing good happens to me because I'm XYZ. That would be a really easy path for you to take. And maybe in other lifetimes you have, and
perhaps.
We all have.
Yeah.
But when you choose not to, and you choose the opening, the just letting the house guests just clear your furniture, tear your rib cage wide open, you can feel it all. And that seems like what is worth doing while you're here.
It's all divine.
Yeah. And so I want to kind of start to, narrow in on how the Tibetan bowl was a profound thing that vibrated with you, and how did that start to turn into a sound healing practice for yourself, and then a practice that you wanted to start sharing with other people?
Yeah, so I became a shaman in 2020. It's something I'd been thinking about since my 20s.
It's a cool ass title.
Right? And whenever I would look it up, like I would think, oh, I'm going to study this and I'm going to, for whatever reason, it just kept popping into my atmosphere. And then I would always brush it away because I'd be like, who am I to think that I'm a shaman? And I do have American Indian heritage and really significant.
Sure.
So I'm sure that's probably, it's probably
There's
somewhat,
some generational hangover from
probably
that. Yeah.
definitely was, an Indian shaman in my past at some point. But it kept coming back around. And then during COVID, I actually was taking a 10-week course with Eckhart Tolle, which was amazing because we'd all be live on a Zoom call with Eckhart, and it'd be like, people would be like from all over the world. It was really, really cool. But again, right before I started this course, I also looked at a shamanism course. And again, I, for whatever reason, pushed it away. And then I talked to a friend of mine, and she was like, oh, I'm taking this amazing shamanism course. And I was like, what? Yeah. I was like, are you kidding me? She's like, no, oh my God. She's telling me all about it. And so I told her, about my history with shamanism. And she said, she's like, my teacher would say, if you've been thinking of shamanism since you were in your 20s, what more of a calling do you need than that? And I just never thought of it like that. I was like, oh my God, you're absolutely right. That makes perfect sense. So I became a shaman. And during that time, one of the women that I met, she was in the class in a quarter of before me, because it takes a whole year. Yeah. And we met and became really, really good friends, really, really close friends. And we went to Italy together. She lived in Italy at one point in her life for many years. And so we went back and visited with some of her friends. And one of her friends had just gone through this sound healing certification. And she was like, oh, do you want to come? I'll give you a sound bath. And Amanda was like, you want to do this? And I was like, yeah, that sounds great. I had never even had a sound bath before.
Love sounds, love baths.
Right? I'm like, that sounds fantastic. And so, we're in Tuscany. Like, how bad could it be? Yeah. And we experienced the sound bath together. And, she and I are, both really open to astro traveling, and just being in these other realms if we choose to go there. Mm-hmm. And we both experienced such profound experience. It was such a profound experience that
psychedelic, maybe.
Yeah. And I just remember I couldn't stop thinking about the sound bath, and it just all kind of came together for me. Like my music background, my grief, my shaman work. Yeah. The healing instruments, the science behind the healing instruments was fascinating to me. Yeah. And I was like, that's my path. I just knew, I just instinctively knew this is what I'm meant to do next.
Right. I mean, a lifetime of I like music. It's a thing that's in my life. Or now I have whatever, the grief and all this stuff. And it's really cool when a moment hits you. Yeah. And you're like, well, here it is. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, everything kind of culminated, and I was able to see clearly that this is a great way for me to be able to teach what I know, little bits at a time, and throw the sound healing in and help people come back into right vibration with themselves. Yeah. Because we all, as humans, experience so many things that throw us off our natural vibration. Oh, yeah. And when we stay in that state of unnatural vibration, we begin to bring dis-ease into our bodies. So little by little, unbeknownst to us, we're like, all of a sudden we're in this place where, wow, I have this chronic thing and I don't even know how I got here, and nobody else seems to know how I got here either.
Right.
It's very mysterious, but at the same time, it's not.
Right. Well, we don't have scientific instruments, at least yet, or probably ever, because it's not, the scientific method just cannot define everything. And much to the chagrin of many scientists, I love science. It's an amazing
I do
thing.
too.
It's an amazing thing.
And I'm like you. I'm also a bit skeptic. Like even throughout my shaman training, I was like, this is insane.
What a wacky thing.
Was this
Right.
crazy? I can't believe that I'm doing this. And then I do it, and then I'm like, oh my God, like I can't believe how it's working. Like
I can't not believe what I'm experiencing.
This is
right?
crazy. How can this work like this? And it just does. And the sound healing, a lot of sound healing, and there are a lot of ways now that we can test the brain waves in our brain. Joe Dispenza does a lot of testing before and after his meditative weekends, and it's amazing what they find, that how the brain shifts and how the molecules like change shape, and it's really amazing. So there is a lot of science behind it. Even intention, like we don't realize how strong our intention is.
Yeah.
For example, there was this one test, I don't know if you want to call it a test, but an experiment done where they took cells in a petri dish, two identical petri dishes, identical cells, and one by one, so the first dish went into the room with the orchestra, and they played a particular song. And as they were playing, they were told to only think about love and the people that they loved and experiences that were amazing to them and just the best times of their life, right?
Yeah.
They played the song, the petri dish was taken away, put in the incubator, second petri dish comes in, same song, same musicians, but this time they're thinking about all the negative stuff that may be in their life, the people that they dislike, the shit storms that they experience, just negative, right?
Yeah.
That cell petri dish put in the same place with the other petri dish. The petri dish that experienced the music with the intention of love and healing and joy grew at 5 times the rate than the other petri dish.
Wow. That's incredible.
Yes, it is incredible. So, one of the phrases that have been coined, Jonathan Goldman actually, is intention plus sound equals healing. So when I'm working in a sound bath, it's really important for me, and I spend quite a bit of time dropping into whoever it is going to come join me that day. But I constantly reminding myself that it's not about what I'm playing. It's not about the sequence really of what I'm playing. It's not about what I'm singing. It's all about my intention to be there in love and to hold space for people to come back into alignment for themselves and to give them the opportunity in the pathway to be able to release whatever heavy thing in their heart is holding them back from living life to the fullest.
Right. I mean, like with that experiment in mind, if you didn't have that intention, then you could still go through the motions. Like those people played that piece proficiently and probably perfectly because they're in a well-trained orchestra. But the difference that it has on a level that we don't even perceive necessarily is profound. And you can feel that when you in your daily life, not just going into mindful quote unquote spaces. You can feel the impact of an intention that you're having or that someone else is having, and you don't really have words for it. You can't really understand why, but you go home feeling like, ooh, that really landed in a beautiful way, or ooh, I didn't resonate with the words that were, even though the words were great words, they didn't land, or I think it's Gabor Mate.
Yes.
He's wonderful.
Oh my
wonderful.
gosh. Amazing.
He talks about culture in a way that really shifted it for me, is that culture is exactly what, the scientific breakdown of culture is, this petri dish of cells, and that we are that petri dish. I mean, our culture is a petri dish and you are a cell in it. And so these vibrational surroundings and cultural rules or practices, they all impact our health and our wellness and our ability to function as human beings. And so it's important that we create, in small and big ways, a culture that is growth oriented, that is healing oriented, that is expansive, and that starts with the individual, really.
Yes, definitely.
And as someone who's been to one of your sound healing classes, I can feel the intention. I mean, I felt like I didn't have a choice, where I was in the best way possible. I could have come up with as many cynical, I'm rooted here and I'm not going to go where she's trying to take me kind of like thoughts. I wasn't in that headspace, but it just had this sense of like LeeAnn's intention for this sound healing and what she is feeling and bringing. I have no choice but to go with her. And it was like, and I trusted that. And it was I think we went to like the Crystal
Temple
in like the Cosmos or something. And I was just like, I'm there, man. It was wonderful. And I do want to use that as kind of a launching point to a few questions that some people had for you, believe it or not. Cool. My sister, Alyssa, had a question about, when you show up to do these kind of things. Hey, Charlie, I know we're going to get out of here soon. When you're leading a group sound healing, how much of it have you rehearsed or pre-planned? How much in advance have you set that intention, or does it sometimes just come in the moment? Like how much are you leaving up to the moment?
So I do spend time thinking about what kind of message I want to bring into the room that day. So I do spend not a terrible amount of time, but I like to write most of the meditations that I do quote, that I do say in my sound baths. Some of them I do take from other people, and then I like to mention that, that's a Ram Dass meditation, by the way, it's not mine. But I'd like to spend time kind of just preparing what it is that I want to bring attention to, whether it's, the energy of the fall solstice or energy of the new moon, and what that energy means for us as humans, and how we can harness that energy to create healing and to create more openness and a clearer path for our journey. So I'll think about things like that. And a lot of times, if I've written a meditation, whatever the meditation is about, I might clarify a few sentences in the beginning, or kind of lay the groundwork for, this is where we're going today.
Yeah.
There have been times where I haven't had a chance to meditate or to really focus on what it is I want to do, and I just kind of pick one that morning out of my arsenal. And, that's okay too.
Yeah.
There are times when, for whatever reason, I haven't felt the need to really prepare a lot, and I just go with my instincts, and I always pray, I always clear the room of energy, but I always drop into my guides, my higher self. I ask, my idea of what God and source is to always be with me and to keep me from getting lost or getting confused by my ego. Get my ego out of the way so I can allow the guides in the room, everyone else's guides, if there's messages that I need to receive from them, that I can be open to hear them without any sort of weird egotistical chatter going on in my own head.
Right. Well, you can set that intention, like maybe sometimes too rigidly or far in advance, to the point that you get to the actual thing. And like you said, the spirit or the guide or whatever you want to call it is calling for something else, and you're just like, I already set my intention, like we're doing this, but you're gonna not reflect in the same way you could if you opened.
Yeah. So, and I guess the short answer of that is I don't look at it as a performance.
Yeah.
So sometimes I feel like if I over prepare, then it's almost like I'm preparing for a performance, and I don't want to do that.
Right, because then it doesn't give people that authentic sense of we're all here having this experience together, including the person
including
facilitating,
me. Yeah.
right?
Mm-hmm.
That's cool. Also, someone asked in a similar vein is, what's led you here has been a very heart-opening journey. Like I said, kind of just letting the universe mold you into this and open you enough that you can bring in all of this energy and other people's energy and a lot of, I can imagine, just empathy you feel in a sense of when other people are in your space.
Mm-hmm.
How do you navigate other people's energy as you're facilitating healing and it's coming out? People are, kind of using you as a vessel, or maybe you open as a vessel to this energy. How are you balancing that to where you're not stopping their experience from happening, but you're also able to walk away and be okay?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So again, it goes back to intention.
Yeah.
And whether or not I'm working in a group situation or I'm working one-on-one with someone, I intentionally put a field around myself that's very buoyant. So it will allow good energy to come in, but it will block negative energy from entering my field. So whenever I'm working with people or even like traveling in an airport or being in a busy grocery store, I'm really cognizant of the energy around me.
Yeah.
And so I do protect myself, that way. So I want to be able to hear the messages that are coming in, especially if it's for the benefit of somebody that's lying on the floor.
Sure.
But I'm also aware that when you're in a healing space and you are going through a healing experience, things can be unlocked from your body, energy that can be unlocked that you're no longer needing. Sometimes that energy wants to go somewhere else.
Right.
And so with my intention, I do not want it to go into me.
Sure.
Because if I work with so many people that if I had all their negative energy, or
Right.
not necessarily negative energy, but trauma energy that's
Yes.
stuck in them,
Yeah.
that could just really overwhelm my system.
Right.
And
Well, in
then
the same way of, I guess a more standard way to understand it is like psychotherapists and whatever who day in, day out are
Yes.
facilitating healing as well. And it's coming out in a
Yes.
more verbal way, but the compassion fatigue that can happen, and can halt your ability to show up authentically.
Yeah.
So it's, like you said, it's important to
Yes.
set those intentions and put on your protective gear,
Yeah,
so to speak.
a little bit. Yeah, a little fire suit.
Right. Because healing isn't, the word healing conjures up a lot of like rosy imagery of maybe laying in a bubble bath and
Right.
everything's pleasurable. And there is a lot of pleasurable healing practices too. But there is a lot of shedding of pain in healing as well, that you have to, like we said, you have to be open to the full
Yeah.
range of house guests
Right.
in order
It's
to
part
have
of
a
it.
healing experience.
Yes.
And so there can be some real heavy stuff flying out from the healing process.
Yes.
It's not
Yeah,
just bubble
especially in the
baths.
sound baths. People can experience, like, it sounds like an amazing thing. Oh, that sounds lovely. I'm going to go have tea and lay on the floor.
Yes.
But it can be really jarring, especially if you're holding on to something that comes to the surface.
Yeah.
So people experience anger sometimes, or like a release of sadness.
Yeah.
But typically, once that release happens, in a day or two, their being feels so much lighter.
Yeah.
So
More
much
able
ready.
to handle that when it
Yes.
comes again, because it's less identified.
Right.
Yeah. That's a good segue into this. I have two more questions, but this one specifically is right on that that vein of when meditation, and sound bath is a type of meditation for sure. When you go to meditation and that mindfulness brings you to a place that's scary or uncomfortable or angry, they're asking basically, what do you do about that?
So my first instinct is go back to your breath. That pulling deep breath into the body settles your nervous system. It lets your body know that everything is really okay. You know, there's only 3 reasons why we're triggered as humans. We don't feel safe, we don't feel seen, or we feel like we've lost control. So
that checks out for me.
yeah. And it could be, all 3 of those at the same time or 2 at the same time. Right. But so when you have an experience of feeling triggered in a sound bath, I would say take some deep breaths and take a look at that. Like, what has that dislodged for you? It could be something at the surface that needs to peel away from a past experience in which you didn't feel safe. And somehow the sound bath triggered that vibration that's deep inside of that unsafe, that scared feeling.
Yeah.
Or a time where you just didn't feel like you were in control of anything.
The brain is really good at convincing us that it's not the right time to feel this, and that it would be safer if we just stopped what we were doing, which was triggering the thing. Say it's going to a meditation or a sound bath or just sitting in stillness. The first instinct is to back away, to stop the thing that's triggering. Stop the bleeding, right? That's our brain is here to keep us alive and safe. And when something threatens that, its first mission is get rid of that thing. But like you said, learning, and maybe slowly, it's not a pressure thing. It's not, you could spend your whole life tapping into this and, but slowly teaching yourself that you can feel those things and still be in your body and still be safe and still be held by something deeper as you're having this terrifying experience. And I think, from what I understand, people who've had psychedelic experiences and not rejected the negativity of a bad trip and actually allowed it to happen, that's where a lot of that growth and expansion comes from, is in, this is terrifying, this is scary, this is triggering, and I can accept it, and I can still be here.
Right, and I'm handling it.
Yeah, and it's very hard to do, but so paradigm shifting when you start to allow it.
Yes, it's very
in.
empowering.
Yeah.
There's something magical when you realize that there are no limits to our capacity to be and to grow.
The only limits are the ones we set, right?
The only limits are the ones we set.
Yeah. I just sit with that for a second.
Yeah.
Another friend is curious about, and I don't know if this is relevant to you or in your realm of, we're all in this realm of technology and smartphones, but how to mindfully break the pattern of like doom scrolling and just like always going to the well of numbing out with social media and whatnot. Like, do you have any of your own? I'm sure you struggle with it too, because everybody does. But
so, I sympathize with that struggle with the your age group and my daughter's age group, because so much of life is happening on this thing that we're holding in our hands, and it can be so alluring. Sometimes you just gotta walk. You gotta walk away, and that requires discipline. Like there's a time and a space for everything, and scrolling through constant information is exhausting.
Yes.
And it really does drain your own personal energy.
Oh yes.
And it can bring your vibration into a state where it doesn't belong, because what you're looking at doesn't belong to you, right?
Yes.
I think people get, really bogged down with negative news. And again, it comes back to that law of attraction. And and understanding what vibration is.
Yes.
You know, one thing that I've always been really cognizant of, and I think that social media really amplifies this, is collusion.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we get into these states of colluding with each other about how shitty something is
Oh,
or
yeah.
how shitty someone is. And
Right.
that's not helping anything. You're just giving that situation more power
Yeah.
by you indulging in that line of talk and
Yes.
speak.
Indulging is the right word because it's an
You're-
egoic.
right.
It feels like
it's a me
productive.
versus, it's an us versus them, or you know, me
Yeah.
versus you. And so it just gives that, whatever that is, that negativity, more power to become a bigger vibration.
Yeah, but it scratches it on one level. It does scratch this itch of this never-ending mosquito bite that we all have, right? It scratches the itch, but it doesn't stop the.
Right.
It will never stop itching.
Doesn't stop the bleed, right?
And so there's, when you're identified, and I go through that all the time, where I'm like, no, this is what I should be doing. I should be pushing the pavement on this, political thing or whatever.
Well, there's a difference between putting your boots on the ground in line with the political ideology, like going to a rally.
Right.
So if you're going to be slamming, pro-lifers and all of this, and you're just talking the negative to speak about it, but you're not getting off your ass and going to the rally,
Right.
then you're just colluding. You're just
Yeah.
adding to that vibration. But if you're going to talk about, I'm marching, I'm going to Washington to march about this, then
Right.
you're a part of us. You're a part of creating.
A cell in that culture.
Yeah, you're trying to bridge this gap.
Yeah.
And it you can get so down the rabbit hole with our attachments to our beliefs,
Yes.
and how that attachment to our beliefs can cause suffering in so many ways, not only with us,
Yeah.
because then we suffer about what we believe because we see these people doing the other thing, and then we
Yeah.
get all caught up in that. But, letting go of judgment of others and what we're attached to, what we think is right, what we think is wrong.
Yeah.
Because what might be right and wrong for us are definitely not the same things for somebody else.
Yes.
But that's where so much of our suffering comes from in this world, in this culture, is our inability as humans to be compassionate towards the other person,
Right.
see them for their whole selves. Because even the people that we think we don't like are most likely perfectly lovely people.
Yes. And exactly. And to just open our minds to the limitations that technology has, because sometimes it feels truly limitless, but inherently you're only seeing a keyhole of a such larger thing that you can only experience by getting into life.
Right.
And I don't want to shame social media, because I think there is a time and a place and some wonderful aspects to it, but we can really get into the sense that we're really connecting, but it is inherently limited by its nature. You can
Right.
only connect so deeply on this platform, on this dimension, so to speak. And learning to decouple that connection from your phone and getting just into life, the boringness of life, the whole, like the guest house, right? The whole range of anger, boredom, beauty, mundaneness, crumbs on the countertop. What is all these different things that are really real and here right now. I guess if there's any advice I could give to this friend is that I'm struggling with this too, and I go through times in my life where I'm having a hard time with my outer world, whether it's going through a breakup or losing. I lost my dog this year, and it really drives me to these easy things. The phone is such an easy rush of dopamine and feel good chemicals that, we just ultimately all of us want to feel good, and the sooner the better.
Yeah.
But learning, and I'm just, the other day it was Sunday, and I set up an auto response on my phone. So if anyone texted me, they got a text, there was no reason for people to worry or anything like that. It was hey, my phone is currently in a drawer. I'll get back to you tomorrow. And I just left it in the drawer, and it was really hard because there was actually so many moments that I was doing something, my sister and I were on a walk. We came back, we're sitting down, and I'm just patting my legs like, oh, where's my phone in my pocket? And I was like, oh my gosh, what else would I be doing? Or what else could I be doing? Or what can I not do?
Right.
And dwelling in that awkward discomfort and like just awkward intimacy with the moment was at first very bizarre. And then as the day went on, I got really into it.
Yeah, it's very freeing. I leave my phone at home on purpose a lot. I leave it on silent most of the time, which drives my husband a little bit crazy. But
I think we all need to be driven crazy because it's like we're all too available.
Yes, we're all too available. And again, to your friend, I mean, there's a timer on your phone. So, I mean, you can always set your timer like, I'm going to allow myself a little bit, 10 minutes or whatever it is. Of indulgence to see what my friends are up to or see what my people are that I follow are doing. And then I'm going to set it aside.
Yeah.
Because you really are missing so much of what's happening in front of you if you're just looking down at something that's happening who knows how far away from you. And you see that all the time, whether you're out to dinner or you're someplace really cool and you look around and people are like on their phones and they're sitting at a table with other people and everyone's on their phone and you're just like, wow.
Yeah. You paid a lot of money to, or whatever it is. You went through a lot of trouble even to put on the clothes and to
organize this
drive the
time
car
together, and you're just not being present at all.
You could have that same experience on the sofa by yourself.
Right.
It is so
it's fascinating.
It's cultural. So, and also another pointer to my friend is I did download this app, ironically, but it's called One Sec, SEC, and you can. I think there's a free version which allows you to restrict one app, and you can pay like $12 a year to do any app, but you set. Say Instagram, for instance, which is my biggest problem of compulsively going to. Every time you go to open Instagram, it pops up this screen that it says it's time to take a deep breath. And the bar raises up and you breathe in with the bar and then you breathe out as it goes down. And then it says, do you still want to open Instagram? Yes or no? And you get to choose mindfully as opposed to just like, oh, I hit the button, I'm in Instagram. There's no thought.
Right.
Does it piss me off? Yes. Sometimes I'm like, I just wanted to go
because you're not in control? No.
Yeah, no, exactly. And it's been really helpful just to, there's been a lot of times where I've hit, no, I don't actually want to go into Instagram. And I put my phone back down and I go do the actual thing. So recommend the app One Sec. Stops the doom scrolling at least 5%.
Yeah, that's cool. Yep.
So those are all the questions. We've been talking for a good while, and I appreciate. We might have to break this into two parts. Either way, it's wonderful. I'm just so grateful for the time and your vulnerability and sharing. Do you want to take just a little break and set up something to guide the listeners in a meditation?
Oh, sure. Yeah, we can do that. Yeah.
I think it'd be cool to integrate some sort of sound into it and see what happens. Your first experience with microphones too, right? With
definitely.
Your stuff. So let's take a break. I need to use the restroom, and then we'll come back, meditate, and get out of here.
Okay, sounds good.
All right. Okay, we are back and ready to have a little sample of what LeeAnn does, which is leading a sound bath meditation, and just a piece of what that experience is like here for the listeners. And maybe afterwards, LeeAnn can talk about how you can experience the sound bath, maybe with her or other people. So without any hesitation, go ahead, LeeAnn.
This meditation is called Show Up in Love. When you show up in love and allow another to just be, you rid them of the burden of your expectations. You allow them freedom to move within themselves, around themselves. Celebrate themselves without shame in the name of knowing all of themselves. It is only through acceptance that we see all the colors. Through acceptance and forgiveness, love becomes the perfect balance of goodness, of goddess and of God, masculine and feminine, pure but imperfect. Allow for the light and the dark. That is the essence of the divine. In the words of Leonard Cohen, without the cracks, we can't see the light. And life is a series of opportunities to choose to stay awake at the wheel. It is our choice. We control our own actions, reactions, articulations. We cannot control the other. We speak our truth, ask for what we need or want. When the door opens, we walk through. Whether our energy is attracting, reflecting, positive or negative, dark or light, there is freedom in knowing we are here to grow. We are here to play and find joy in all the peaks and valleys. Stop doubting your ability to show up in love. Love is where we came from, and love is where we will return. Why abandon it in the middle?
That was incredibly lovely and honestly spoke to a lot of things I needed to hear like today. And just thank you for your time today in general.
You're
and
welcome. It was
your first podcast.
Pleasure
right?
being here. Yeah. So
Wow.
it was exciting for me too.
I'm honored, and you
Yeah.
just did an amazing job being yourself. You seem to do a good job at it and
Thank
have
you.
done for a long time.
I've had some practice.
The title of this podcast is Comfort in Chaos. So what is something right now in your life that is providing comfort in the chaos? It could be a range of things. You know, it could be a TV show. It could be a practice. It could be anything.
Yes. This beautiful place that we live, Hatteras Island, brings a lot of comfort to me that I take advantage of on a daily basis. I sometimes joke with my friends that I am one of those people that perhaps practices too much self-care.
Is there a thing?
And sometimes I need to remind myself that, there is another side of of building anything. You know, there's a discipline to
Yeah.
anything that we desire and want to grow. But comfort, so yeah, I do Qigong almost every day. That brings me a lot of comfort, and I love chanting, and then just walking barefoot on the earth and humming will really ground me down when I'm feeling, if I feel anxious at all. In fact, to your listeners, if you ever do feel that feeling in your body of feeling triggered or starting to feel anxiety really come in to your body, and you want to unravel yourself, one of the best ways to do that is to take your shoes off and to walk on the earth, because we have a magnetic connection at the bottom of our foot right below our big toe mound. It's called the K spot, and that's our magnetic connection to the earth. So if we walk around barefoot, and especially if we walk around barefoot and hum to ourselves, we're not only receiving that magnetic connection from the earth, but we're creating that frequency inside the cavity of our own body that allows our cells to come back into natural vibration and ease with one another.
Wow.
So it's very soothing, and it's a great way to come back into balance.
That's amazing. And, I didn't know anything about the K spot or any of that, but as someone who's grown up barefoot and humming to themselves most of my life, that makes sense now why I feel so at peace.
Yep.
And to whoever else is out there, do beware wherever you live. Maybe just watch your step in certain urban environments. There could be some shrapnel.
Right.
But
try to find a piece of grass if you live in the city.
Yeah, walking barefoot really is just it connects you to the earth. It connects you to your child self. And for me, it's like a sense of before I put on these literal clothes and metaphorical clothes of society, is like, you know what? No, I'm just a barefoot kid, and it's very, very comforting.
Yes, very
amongst
comforting.
The chaos.
Yeah,
well, that's wonderful. I like that answer. Before we wrap up, is there anything you want to promote? I know you're kind of ending your sound healing classes you've been doing all summer here in Avon, which have been fantastic, and I'm sure we're going to do again in seasons to come. Are you heading anywhere to do this anywhere else right now?
Yeah, so I will be doing periodically through the fall and winter here when we, Alyssa and I, get together on dates. I'm going to be doing a workshop and sound healing for teen girls tomorrow at Heart
serendipitous.
Space.
Let it ring.
At Heart Space, which is a nonprofit in Avon, where Kinnikit Clay used to be, for those of you that are on Hatteras Island, if you know any young girls that want to join us.
Awesome.
And I'll be doing some workshops there throughout, different types of workshops throughout the winter.
Cool.
I have regular sound baths in Raleigh at my home in downtown Raleigh every Wednesday night. Starting in October and continuing through the winter months. And you can get on
a website.
My website is sonicwellness.health.
Okay, I'll add that to the show notes.
That has an events page, so any kind of event that I'm doing will be listed there, and you can sign up for the weekly Raleigh sound baths there as well. And
awesome.
I do want to plug one thing that's happening in Pittsboro for those of you that are from North Carolina. The first weekend in November, so I think it's November 3rd and 4th, there's actually a death fair happening in Pittsboro at a place called The Plant. And it's a celebration of death and help, as we talked about before, our culture become
we're death deniers.
We're just to help people become more aware and more comfortable with death. For anyone that is in a grief journey right now, it would be a great thing to attend. There's keynote speakers, and I'm going to be doing sound healing, one-on-one sound healing there. There's all kinds of talks and breakouts. There's music. And they have a green burial there on this property, so there's going to be another breakout session there about green burial. But just FYI, you can find that if you go on the website The Plant in Pittsboro, North Carolina, and they do a lot of wonderful things. Yeah.
Death fair.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. That's amazing. I'm going to have to try to make it to that.
Yeah.
And all the links to that I'll find and post here as well. If you're in the Triangle area, absolutely make it. Yeah, it sounds really cool.
Yeah. And another thing too, so my heart is to bring this healing and meditation workshops onto college campuses. So if anyone is listening and they have any connection to college campuses that they think might be open to me reaching out to them, you can contact me through my website, and that would be awesome.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I hope many people do, because I think just looking back at my college experience, there was not a lot of mindfulness going on, and not a lot of opportunities that I knew of, at least, especially in the South, not a lot of opportunities to get into it or have like an entry point to mindfulness. And bring LeeAnn to your college, guys. It will change the world slowly and maybe quickly. Well, LeeAnn,
thank you for having me.
Thank you for being here, and thanks for sharing everything you have, and looking forward to more sound healing. Can you play us out with maybe a little hit of everything? Thank you. Till next time.
Till next time.
All right, everyone. That was LeeAnn Anderson. All the links to how you can find her sound bath meditations will be in the episode notes, as well as some other resources she mentioned. I hope you guys enjoyed this episode as much as I did. That was just water to the soul. And there's a lot of great episodes coming up in the weeks to come, so y'all stay tuned. As always, love your feedback. I'd love to hear from you. And y'all take care. Much love.